creating wealthier women and multifamily real estate to give to humanity without limits. Welcome to Ladies Night with Steph Dablowski.
For my featured guest this week is Maria Marks. Now, if you don't know her, you definitely better know her, especially after this. She has her own podcast that's called Apartment Wealth Podcast, and she has a big old heart for also supporting women, just as I do. I'm really excited for this particular topic because we're not just discussing women in multifamily. We are discussing the importance of collaboration over competition, and how does that work when we're all competing for the same business, but we're also partners. So how do you weigh that out, and how does that work? So without further ado, this is Maria Marks. Maria, tell us a little bit about your story, and then just dive right into the topic that you wanted to speak about, collaboration over competition.
It's so great to see all of you here. So many friendly faces, but my journey into multifamily might have been a bit different from yours. I was standing in my kitchen about 6 days after my wedding to Nick, who's in this call. And it's when I got the call that we had to go to the hospital because my father-in-law was there. We were sitting in this tiny room listening to a doctor tell us that my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. And it turned my life, my brand new husband's life, completely upside down. We went from the best day of our lives to the worst day of our lives in the matter of 6 days. And instead of going on my honeymoon, I was planning a funeral. And I was laying awake at night thinking, what's going to happen to my family? What happens if I'm not here to provide for them? And what happens to my children if I'm not there as well? And I don't even have children, but I'm like thinking about this family that I don't even have and what could happen. And I was spiraling out of control with the what if questions. And that's when I knew that we had to make a change. And Nick and I looked for something. We found multifamily. We listened to countless masterminds. We followed Grant Cardone. We followed Brad Sumrock. We started joining masterminds, listening to podcasts, joining Zooms like this one. And that's how we knew that this was going to be what we were going to do with the rest of our lives. So I quit my job in the hospital to do this full time. And I started helping my mother-in-law get into investing. We got her into her first deal. And once we figured out how we could do that, then we knew that we had a goal to help 1,000 families get into multifamily and create passive income and generational wealth. So that is our passion. And mine specifically is to help people becoming more confident in investing. And that's why we do these calls, because we want everyone to feel confident in their own investments. So that's a little bit about me. I was just at a conference with Jasmine last weekend, and we learned something about collaboration over competition. And that's what I wanted to talk about with you today.
Tell us all about it.
I think personally, there are 3 things that we need to talk about in collaboration over competition. The first one is not doing it alone. And I'm going to specifically talk to the women. And I know there's some lovely men here, but mostly about the women. When we do something, especially in multifamily, I feel like we're always protecting it, that it is our thing. Like when we have a deal, it's our deal. We don't want to bring it to other people. We don't want to add other people in the deal because it's our thing. And I think the first thing about collaboration over competition is understanding that we need to work together to go even faster. So I think working together, not doing it alone, is the first point. I think the second point, again, is more geared to women, is not being negative when we talk to ourselves. The mirror is our biggest enemy. If I'm just talking from personal experience, where I always say, we can't do this. I can't do that. I won't be able to do this. I won't be able to close this deal. And I think that if we can just stop with the negative talking and stop being so negative with ourselves, we are going to be able to collaborate more and scale and go a lot quicker. And then the final point I have about it is to not compete with each other. I know it's really hard, especially in this when we're in all these WhatsApps and everyone's doing everything and you want to be like, it's my turn. It's my turn to post something. It's my turn to say something. But we have to understand that this is all about working together. It's all about supporting each other. Today I'm speaking and last time Brooke spoke. And so we all need to be like working towards helping each other, because you never know when that one person is going to be the person you're going to collaborate with. So being excited for everyone's accomplishments is the biggest part of collaborating and working together.
It's true. We're all doing everything. And it's almost like we really have to, in this space, be like a little bit of piece of everything to stand out. But at the same time, we need to collaborate and have our own specific niche on each, because once you know what your strength is, you can just keep providing your strength. With all the posting that goes on, what do you think the difference is between a competitive post and post where it's, I'm just trying to make sure you guys didn't forget about me, I'm still here trying to support you? How do you weigh all of that out when we have so much going on?
I think it's definitely not the post itself, because posting is posting. If someone has a deal, they post it, or if they're doing something, they post it. But I think it's the communication that goes along with it. Like when you like it, or when you reply to it, or when you're even saying, congrats, Steph, I'm so excited that you have this person on your podcast or your Zoom tonight. That's showing the engagement and showing the community that we've all built here. This community of multifamily, I feel like it's huge because I know all of you, but it's very small compared to other networks and other groups of people. So building together and being excited when someone is doing something big, it's hard to do sometimes because it's hard not to be jealous, to be like, oh, I wish I was doing that, or I wish I was doing that. But it's just knowing that if you're giving that support to someone, that when it's your turn, you're going to have that coming right back to you. It's all an energy.
Yeah, it's that whole karma effect,
Yeah.
right? You give
I
what you
truly
want
believe
to
that.
get, but you're giving because you're giving out of your spirit and what you want to give, not because you're trying to get back. Staying on top of everyone's things, I know, is like a really difficult thing. I know I'm always very excited to support everyone, even if it is just slight engagement. Hey, I'm so excited for you. You have this podcast, and you do have a podcast, and I am really excited to dig in deeper and just hear a lot of these great nuggets that you're providing all of us. I know podcasting looks like it would be easy, but it is not. There is a lot that goes on in the background, things you don't see. And even with Zooms too, there's a lot of last minute like OMGs that happen behind the scenes that no one sees. And even running a group, there's so much that goes into these things that seem small. I really commend you for doing a podcast. It's a really big step, and particularly when you started in multifamily, I think last year. Yeah, the growth is incredible and what you can do in just such a short period of time. And I know for a lot of women, I think what they would say is, oh, I can't start that podcast because I don't know everything. And that's going into what you're saying about positive self-talk.
Yep.
I don't know everything. I'm hosting this, but I'm hosting it because I want to get to know everyone in our space and share what I learn with everyone. It's more about a sharing and supporting than it is about, am I enough? And what would you say? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you're totally on the right space. We're never not learning. And that's something that we all come to these Zooms. We're all working together because we still want to continue learning. If you're stopped learning and you think you know everything about multifamily, you're not going to go very far. We continue to go to events. We go to all of these events because we're continuing to learn and move forward. And if you're telling yourself that you can't start a podcast, I did this a year ago. I was working in a hospital. I was not thinking about creating generational wealth or how you could pay no money in taxes. I'm not thinking about that a year ago. And now I'm preaching about it on a podcast. I feel like it's that confidence that you do really know a lot about multifamily. If you think about it, you might not know everything maybe in this group, but if you go to a group of friends or you go to somewhere where we're not always talking about it, you do know a lot and you are an expert in your field. So even just telling yourself that and being confident, I think that is truly it. And continuing to educate yourself.
Absolutely. I think too, when I think, oh, I don't know anything, I can't share anything at all. I often go back to the thought of when I tell somebody that I'm in real estate, they think that I'm a residential realtor.
I think
Like
that
there is there's like such a gap, and we know a lot more of that gap than the average person knows. So even just that, it's okay, but you know something. So I have some questions for,
Okay.
and I know we want to support and not compete, but what do you do when somebody is being a little nefarious and decides to compete with you and maybe poaches your deal? What do you do in that situation?
I think the biggest thing is to know that how you handle the situation is the story that is being told about this deal. So if something happens where someone steals your deal or someone steals something that you were doing, then be positive. It's going to be the hardest thing. Believe me, I am the first one to want to come at you, but it's a very small community and people talk. If you're going to steal someone's deal, I guarantee you, I'm going to know about it. And it's going to make people not want to work with you again. So just the way that you handle it with grace and understanding and be like, that's your decision. It's not my decision. It's not what I would want to do. And maybe we won't collaborate again. And maybe it's how you handle it though, that's gonna speak volumes versus anyone else. And that person who stole your deal, good luck finding people to invest in it. Like, it's that good karma, that good coming back to you. It's how you would want someone to treat you in that situation. I would be as positive as, even though it's difficult. You can scream into your pillow later.
Yeah, just scream into your pillow a lot. Have a friend that you can vent to for a little bit and let it go, because it is true. It's a very small community. People definitely do talk. If you're on the blacklist on one person's list, it's very,
You're done.
you're done. If you do a capital raise and all of your investors were led astray on a deal that you provided, you're done, because they don't want to invest with you again. And investors talk. So we do have a balance there.
And even investors, if it goes down to the broker level, like even brokers might not want to work with you. It's the chain of how the deal's structured. Like even Michael was saying someone tried to steal his deal, but people know where it came from. People know where it started. And it's funny that people think that instead of working together, we should just do it by ourselves. And that's the main point. We need to collaborate. Maybe you have something that you could bring to the deal that maybe that other person didn't. Or Steph, if you're trying to take my deal, maybe there's something that you could bring to it. And instead of creating this competition, we could just work together.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better, honestly. I don't really want to be like stealing any of your deals, because if I'm real, it's just a lot of work. I could use the support.
People are much more willing to help people that they trust and love. You want to do deals with people that you can hang out with. You're with these people. And I know people say this all the time, but like it's like you're marrying these people when you do a deal with them. Sometimes you're doing a deal for 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 years. So if you don't get along at the beginning, it's not setting yourselves up for a great deal marriage.
So, what are your personal multifamily goals this year, and what does success look like for you?
For me personally, I will be raising $6 million on the amount of deals that I'm on. And I'm going to say will, because if I put it into the universe, it'll happen. So I'm so excited for that. I've partnered with Massive Capital. They've given me this opportunity to do that. So I'm going to take that advantage of raising my butt off. I'm excited.
So, you said don't do this alone. And I was finding when I was starting out that trying to do everything on my own, it was just way too much. You
Right.
definitely need a team. And I saw that you joined Massive
I
Capital.
did. I did.
How did you make that decision?
My teeny tiny team is actually on this call. It's my husband and my brother-in-law, and we are Marks Point Capital. And the three of us were trying to do things by ourselves. We were trying to take down a deal by ourselves. We were putting in offers, we're walking properties, and it was a kind of silly. It really was. It was silly to think that we could do all of those moving pieces by ourselves. Now, we probably could have. We probably could have figured it out. I don't want to say that negative about it. We probably could have, but it would have taken a lot longer. So, joining Massive, joining a team was the best option for me because I can scale so much faster and further if we're all working together. So even if Massive's not an option for you or you're not able to join a team right now, work together. Like this team right here, we could take down a deal a lot quicker than me by myself.
Yeah, I definitely echo that because I was struggling so hard just to be like, okay, even if I find the deal, I've walked everything. There's still this lone piece of I want to do deals that I can't necessarily do on my own because I'm not in a position where I have millions of dollars in my bank to buy a multifamily property. So you still need that KP person
Yep.
unless you're already super wealthy, but that's not really honestly where any of us come from. Most of us start from the bottom and have to work our way up to that KP part of the deal. Just trying to find a
Exactly.
KP that would take you seriously is really tough without a team.
Exactly. My Marks Point Capital didn't have any deals that we could use as a resume. We've invested as LPs, but when you go to a broker and you tell them, hey, I want to buy this $50 million deal, and they're like, hey, honey, sure.
It's like
No.
right on the head.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
you need to have that behind you, that power of that team. And if you don't have the resume that has all the deals that have gone full cycle, you join people who have, and you say the team has been full cycle on a certain amount of deals. The team has done this, and that's how you utilize each other. If you haven't gone full cycle, okay, then you join someone who has. That's the best way to do it. And that's how you're going to collaborate over taking a deal down. Because you might not be able to be a KP, but you might need a KP. You might need someone who can run asset management. Your team goes from one person to 10 very quickly.
Yes, it does. And then you don't have to focus on literally everything anymore. Such a relief.
And even a piece of a pie, even if it's a small piece, is still better than 100% of nothing. And if you're not willing to join a team and have a little percentage of it, then I don't think I'm willing to work with you either. Because you've got to be willing to work together. You've got to be willing to work on a team and work collaboratively. If not, the whole thing is going to fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about your podcast. I know you started just earlier this
I
year
did.
putting things out. I know you've been working on it for 6 months in the background to get it up and running.
I hired a coach. I hired a podcast coach because I could Google it. I could try to figure it out on my own, but I want to expedite this. I want to have a team, even if it's just me doing this. I want to make that team for myself for this podcast. So I hired someone who knows more than me. You know, if you're going to run a race, you're not going to look it up on the internet on how to do it. You're going to hire someone to help you, to keep you accountable, to make sure that you're doing the workouts that you're supposed to be doing. So that's what I did for this podcast. I hired someone to help me understand. Right now, I'm doing the editing myself, but eventually I'll have a team that can do it for me, which will be really helpful. But the podcast is mostly geared to people who aren't on this Zoom because you guys know a lot more than you think. You guys don't need to know about what it is to be an LP versus a GP. But hey, I'll take the support if you want to help. But we're starting from the baseline minimum and helping people become more confident in investing, mostly women. Men can watch too and listen too, but it's mostly geared to that. And once we build up the education platform, then I would love to have all of you guys on it. I want to have you guys to help and explain what it meant for you guys to invest passively and how that's helping you create generational wealth. So that's why I started it. I was talking to people who wanted to invest, but then they did the same thing like you, Steph. They thought I was a realtor. And then they thought I was a broker. And then they thought that I furnish apartments. That was my favorite one. But I furnish apartments.
Awesome.
What am I saying incorrectly there?
Airbnb, that's realistic.
Oh, that's sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So I ended up spending about 45 minutes on the phone explaining multifamily before we got to an actual deal. And that's when I thought, okay, there's got to be a better way for me to do this. There's got to be a better way for me to compile this information and put it somewhere that people can listen to quickly. And when they're ready, they can invest. That's why I started it.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. The whole idea of, okay, you don't know about this space, but really, you really need to know it if you
Right.
want generational wealth. And honestly, a part of my story in this is I have a master's in commercial real estate. I knew other people's money. I knew about syndication, but what they didn't teach me at the end, they want you to go work for somebody. At the end of that program, I didn't have a network of people who were actually wanting to invest. And I said, where are these people? I don't understand. A podcast like yours would have directed me and said, hey, I'm over here. And I would have been like, oh, okay. And that's essentially what happened to me and how I found this space. You're talking about multifamily syndication. Finally, there's a door. Here it is, a person to introduce me to the people that we need. I love that you're introducing people that know nothing about it and the people that may have an idea of what you're talking about, but just need you to be like, I'm in it, by the way. And that's literally all they need. So I'm really excited that you're doing that. Do you have a favorite podcast moment?
There's so many. First of all, this is where I do my podcast. So you see this lovely, clean back. The spaces that you can't see, however, are very hectic and chaotic. My loving husband would say the same. The podcast moments are so interesting because you're only showing what you want them to see. And if I turn this around, you'd see craziness. So that's that. And having a microphone. I didn't know that I needed to have a good microphone. At first, I recorded this whole episode. It was so amazing. And the whole time I went back and listened to it, I sounded like I was underwater. It's just understanding it's not going to be perfect. I thought going into it, I needed to be perfect. I needed to say things a certain way, but that's not what's going to connect with anyone. It's me just being real. And if I say some words repetitively, it is what it is. I have noticed it's very hard to edit yourself. I think that was the hardest thing was editing yourself. And I think I kept going, do I really sound like this? Is this what you listen to? After my husband, I was like, you listen to this all the time? And he's like, yeah, sorry. Oh, okay. So that was a little bit of a struggle, but honestly, it's been really rewarding. I really do like it. I learned a lot about podcasting, things I never thought I would need to know, but I know. But it's been a cool journey.
We have a request to know the information of the podcast company or coach if you're open to sharing that.
Yeah, her name is Bridget Heller. I can put her in the chat. Her podcast is called Strong and Capable. So if you look up Strong and Capable, you'll find her Instagram. And she has a whole podcast course that's relatively cheap. She does do one-on-one coaching still, but I got into her last year, so I'm not sure if she's still doing any more for this quarter, but she's really awesome.
So another question for how long did it take for you to set up the podcast? And maybe this is a double question. There's the recording it, and then there's the editing it, and then there's the producing, like getting it uploaded. So what does it look like?
You have a host site. Anchor is the one I use. And this is all on her course. So if you do talk about it, she'll walk you through this. It's called Anchor, and that's where I upload all of my recordings. I do everything in Zoom because I do have a video component that's not out yet. It's coming, promise. I do have a video component. So I video record. I use this mic. I don't have a soundboard or switchboard or anything. It plugs right into my computer. And I upload all of my things to Descript. Descript podcast editing is where I edit my words and my video at the same time. When I upload it to Anchor, Anchor disperses it to my hosts, which is Spotify and Apple Podcast, Apple was the hardest one to get. So if you are thinking about starting a podcast, know that one was the hardest one. It takes about a week or two to get that licensed and done. But yeah.
Awesome.
You went to the Galantine Gala with Jasmine.
Let it down.
Jasmine and I were there. We were so excited to be there. We're so excited to sit front row because we're at a grand event. You like run to the front, and this event for 50 women, and there wasn't a lot of people. The woman who opened it, she started by saying, "This is for African American and business women."
Oh.
And my face, I think she probably saw it. I was like, "Oh crap, I'm in the front row. am I in the wrong place?
Have to go to the back room? They're in the back row?
If I leave you would notice." It was just, I was like, oh my gosh, did I not read the instructions? But after I had a little brief panic moment that I didn't know how to read the instructions on the course, I was like, you know what? Being the only white woman in the room, I'm going to own this. And I've been in rooms where there was only one African American, one Hispanic, one other nationality or race from mine. And I never thought to myself what that might have felt like for that person. And I thought, you know what? If anyone else can do it, I surely can try this. Jasmine and I stayed, obviously. And she started asking questions. I started asking questions. We started to get to know the room a little bit more. And by the end of the conference, there was a line of women waiting to talk to me.
That's amazing. That's so
And clearly, I learned about collaboration over competition because I had a line of people who wanted to talk to me. And it was just showing that no matter what your race, no matter what room you're in, as long as you can continue to be yourself, you're going to go so far. And that whole question stuff about what to do if someone steals your deal or steals something from you, you just have to be so positive. It's so hard in a situation where you don't really fit in, you don't belong. Own it. Don't change who you are for the room. Be yourself, be you, and people are going to want to work with you. People are going to want to collaborate, and they're going to want to see what your real true heart is about. And it was once I realized that people actually wanted to work with me, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I got my little pep back. And it was neat. I met so many amazing women who have money sitting in their bank account that they need to put in a deal. I was like, oh, that $6 million goal is coming real soon. Okay, let's go. So everyone needs passive income. Everyone wants generational wealth. No matter what you look like, no matter where you are, that is the goal and that is the dream. And if we can all work together, it's going to be amazing.
Absolutely. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming.
For watching Ladies Night with me, Steph Dablosky. I create wealthier women by providing exclusive access to private equity commercial real estate investments. If you're interested, check out my contact details in the description below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.